Hey, it's Tom Laird, host of Advice from a Call Center Geek and CEO of Expedia and AutoQA. Before we dive into the episode, a quick note. Expedia is your CX tech partner, 100% USA-based, AI-powered, and the only contact center outsourcing partner on the NICE CX1 Customer Executive Council. If you're looking for more than just agents, you're in the right place. Love to talk to you if anyone's interested in outsourcing their CX. Now let's get to the episode.
This is Advice from a Call Center Geek, a weekly podcast with a focus on all things call center. We'll cover it all from call center operations, hiring, culture, technology, and education. We're here to give you actionable items to improve the quality of yours and your customers' experience. This is an evolving industry with creative minds and ambitious people like this guy. Not only is his passion call center operations, but he's our host. He's the CEO of Expedia Interaction Marketing Group and the Call Center Geek himself, Tom Laird.
Welcome back, everybody, to a special episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center and contact center podcast, where we try to give you some actionable items, take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve your customer experience as well. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing well. Our two companies, Expedia and Auto, are kind of they're doing it, right? Expedia, we're kind of seeing kind of this little spring resurgence with some USA contact center outsourcing that we're doing. Again, we're about a 400 or 500 seat outsourcer located here in the state in Erie, Pennsylvania. Auto QA is our full AI platform where we're scoring contact center quality forms and calls with AI. So again, pretty excited about that. But I have something I think that's been something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and finally, again, over the weekend with the as I'm recording this, it was the Masters with Rory McIlroy kind of finally coming through, and I've always wanted to see, since this kind of ChatGPT AI thing is out, what would happen if we really dug deep into AI, we took out kind of all of the, I don't know, the semblance of any type of subjectivity, and said, hey, go rank these contact center platforms. Go rank these CCaaS platforms, and let's see what it would come up with. And I did a video on this last Friday, and maybe Friday or Monday. I thought it was going to be easy, but it really wasn't, right? To try to make this as hands-off and as fair as possible, there's some things that we found in creating this kind of ranking or report. And just to kind of set the table here, we have 19 CCaaS platforms that we have rated. It's really all the names that I think you hear. If I'm missing one, I apologize. Let me know, and I'll make sure that you're in when we do the next one of these and see if there's any update. But then we all sat down and we came up with 17 criteria to kind of score these CCaaS platforms, and everything from, AI. What is your AI strategy to the actual tools that you have now, your core capabilities, ease of use, value for the money, your partner ecosystem. Like try to think of everything that we could possibly think through of how to judge fairly these contact center platform providers. So we did this last Friday, and we kind of ran our first sets of data, and I thought it was good, but when you really looked at the data, I don't think it was fair. Some of the things, what we saw was that we didn't weigh any of the categories. That was the biggest thing, right? So you can't say that, your core capabilities and your AI strategy is the same as your, ease of migration or your partner ecosystem, right? Because they're more important. So we kind of thought that through, and over the weekend, as I'm watching the Masters and kind of hanging out on the couch, I kind of went to town again. I used and blew through my whole month. I think it's a month of allotted deep research tools that you can utilize with ChatGPT. Going over and over and over and making sure that we tried to cover everything. The other thing that we found is when we initially did this is that, the deep research will go and pull some things that maybe weren't up to date, right? So it would show a platform and kind of what their tools were 8 months ago. And we all know in the world that we're living in now, 8 months is 10 years, right? With how fast everything is kind of going. So we finally, I think, figured it out. released this kind of report today, and I wanted to kind of go through it. If there's anybody out there that has any questions, let me know too, and we can get to those. But what we did is we kind of looked at. Whoops, let's get to slide 2 here. Is we looked at ChatGPT as kind of the brain behind this, and then we used deep research to kind of pull the data, and we use the operator tool as well to kind of go on a lot of these different CCaaS sites and kind of scrape data, so that we had some of the most up to date data, so that we could give a fair ranking. So we tried to do that as fairly as possible. So again, we then took kind of all of that and created a prompt, right? And we said kind of, look at official product documentation, any pricing that is public, any updates that you find from any blogs, roadmaps, customer support portals, any knowledge bases that are out there. Look at G2, look at Trust Radius, look at Capterra, right? Find customer reviews, look at the analyst reviews for the Magic Quadrant, Forrester Wave, right? But again, I think focus on what the company is doing now, what their plan is, what their roadmap is, and how are customers feeling about kind of what they're doing. That was kind of the gist of our prompt. But, we did put those 17 different criteria in there, and we'll get to some of those criteria in here in a second. But why do I think this matters is there's nothing, again, there's nothing wrong with what the analysts do, right? With the Magic Quadrant from Gartner, from the Forrester Wave. But I think sometimes they're lacking. I think the Forrester Wave had only like 8 or 9 CCaaS platforms. I think there's a lot more out there that people want to know about. And again, am I saying that this is the end all be all? Not even close. But I will tell you, while it is not my opinion, this is the AI and ChatGPT, I think it's closer to what my opinion would be than a lot of times when we have those discussions and arguments over different analyst reports. The other thing with the analyst reports too is I see that there's so much, and maybe this will happen to us too, but there's so much that is different year to year. And then again, I think there is a lot evolving, and platforms are doing a lot and they're changing, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the overall consistency is there. So we wanted to just find out if we have these kind of 17 weighted criteria, could we rank or have a fair representation of these CCaaS platforms. Let me also say this. This does not mean that number 1, you are the best in the world, and number 19, you are terrible. That has nothing really to do with it. Again, just like you guys see in the quadrants, what this is showing is that different contact center platforms have specialties, right? There's some really good outbound program or platforms that maybe aren't in the top 3 or 5 overall CCaaS. Different types of analytics and AI, right? So there's different segmentations for different customer bases. And hopefully that this helps some of you who maybe you're a small SMB that wants to see something that's new and upcoming versus, the enterprise that wants one of the core kind of platforms that we all know and have heard. So again, here's the criteria that we use. Again, your AI tools, your strategy, your core capabilities, the value, right? And that is 35% right there, right? So out of the 17, I think that those are the 3 things that are really the most important. Then we get to, integration and APIs, your analytics, your support, your service, routing flexibility, your outbound capabilities, uptime, ease of use, which probably should have been weighed a little bit heavier. Your innovation velocity, right? Your global reach, migration experience, and ease of onboarding, right? Customer retention, training, partner ecosystem, and market momentum. So those are the 17 criteria that we used. And again, the top 3 or 4 are about 40% of the entire weight. And then you kind of get to the smaller ones, right? Market momentum is 1%. Partner ecosystem is 1%. But I still think that they needed to have a little bit of flavor for that. I think that was important. So I have a picture. Let's add this to the stage. And this is kind of what the overall rankings looked like. And I don't know if there's really that many surprises here. And maybe that makes this right, or I don't know, maybe makes it wrong. But, CX1 and Genesys, I think, are the 2 most elite enterprise platforms. I think that it is fair that Zoom moved into an industry leader. I think what they're doing is crazy good, especially on the AI side and kind of how they're building without any of the, again, when you get to build from scratch in like 2023, 2024, 2025 for your CCaaS, right? There's a lot of things that you can say, hey, we're just not going to do that. And we're just going to focus on kind of this newer technology. And I think they've done that, in a pretty good way. Ring Central is kind of interesting because, as everybody knows, right, Ring basically white labeled, the nice CX1 tool for a really long time. They've come out with Ring's contact center. This was one of the changes that we did make to make sure that that we told ChatGPT to just look for the Ring contact center. I'm not sure it totally did that, right? Not to take anything away from what Ring is doing, but again, they're relatively newer with their own platform in the market. So that might be weighed a little bit higher or maybe not. I'd like to love to know your guys' opinion on that. And I think these strong performers in the next area is, they're a little bit niche, but they're up and coming, right? I mean, I've read a lot of analyst reviews on 8x8, right? And kind of what they're doing. They're right on the fringe from that emerging to a strong performer. I probably shouldn't have used the word strong performer, but these guys, Amazon Connect, everybody knows about. Cisco, everybody knows about. Nextiva is totally up and coming, right? Everybody knows them. They have 100,000 customers, that's publicly available. That's mostly UCaaS, right? To be fair, but I mean, that's a pretty cool launching point when you can launch your contact center platform on top of that UCaaS. I think they're doing some really cool things, and that's a company to kind of look out for. And again, I will tell you this, that for Auto QA, the most amount of customers that we have on the platform is Dialpad, right? And so we're seeing a lot more Dialpad as well. And Twilio kind of has that, we want to build it on our own kind of deal. But I think that, there's a lot of, say in that. And then again, Content Guru is not really fully here in the States. I think maybe that's what's holding them back a little bit. But again, a pretty strong showing with them. But these emerging vendors like UJet, I think is low, right? Especially with what they're doing with Google. I think, it's very low. NobleBiz has an unbelievable, they had a 10 in the outbound offering, right? And that's where they've cut their teeth, right? They've been an unbelievable collections outbound type tool platform that is now, evolving into, a full CCaaS. Again, a lot of the analysts have just raved and review over 8x8. So again, I think that there's a lot here. None of these are bad CCaaS platforms. If you made this list, right, you're in the top 20. There's just now, I think you're starting to see more differentiation between a lot of the different providers as they're saying, hey, we might not be able to compete with the Genesys or the Five9s or the CX1s as kind of that overall platform, but let's get really good at AI. Let's get really good at outbound. Let's get really good at, agent assist or these type of tools. Let's get really good with integrations, right? And try to, again, like I say with auto, be that craft beer, the artisanal cheese of kind of certain market segments or certain customer types, right? Just like you see in the BPO world that there's, that we have BPOs that are just for certain healthcare clients or financial services. I think you're going to start to see that too, as we need to differentiate a little bit with these CCaaS players and kind of how they're going. The other thing that we did, which this is extremely busy, and I'm going to take myself. Actually, let's do this. There we go. So again, this is now, if we look at, again, all those core capabilities here along the top are here and how the AI ranked these. And here's your final score, how we got these final rankings. I think if I had to do this over, I would have done some things to kind of correlate different scores, right? Like what does a 5.6 mean compared to an 8.45? I don't know that yet. Other than, there's a lot that makes sense here. Right? Like, again, people can say that Twilio is easy to use. I think a lot of people say you have to build it, so it's not. And AI, I think, recognize that with a 4 there, which I think is fair. But again, they're integrations. That's what they're built for. They had a 10 for integrations, which makes complete sense. So a lot of these things where, again, I talked about Noble Biz, like they're a 10 for outbound, right? Them and Five9 were really the only two 10s that it was given. So I think that this is a relatively fair representation of not only what these platforms are doing, but how they're representing themselves to the market as well. And I think that the ranking is fair when you look at the overall power, right, of the platforms, right? When you talk about those first 4 or 5, they're trying to be the enterprise guy with all the tools. When you look at kind of those the middle tier, right, they have most of the tools. Maybe they're not fully robust yet, and they're still working that out, but they're starting to become less niche and starting to kind of become a little bit more for everybody, where, the emerging guys, they're very niche, right? They're looking for specific markets. They're okay with that, right? They want to be just really good for this specific use case, and then see how that goes and see how they can grow and evolve. That's kind of how I see this kind of platform and kind of how the market is moving. So again, I didn't do this to tick anybody off. I had mostly all positive reviews, especially on LinkedIn. There was nothing negative from a comment standpoint. I had a couple interesting DMs. But overall, I think people saw what we were trying to do. I think, again, from the prompting standpoint, we tried to make it as vendor neutral as possible. We didn't change. We didn't play. I mean, this would have been way too many numbers for my brain to play with. So again, I think that this was a pretty cool and fair representation. I'm going to do this every 6 months. So again, maybe in the fall, we'll do this again. I think we can do it a little bit more than once a year, but I think if you do it a little bit more than that, maybe it's a little bit redundant. But again, I hope that this gives just another thought into what you're seeing when you see an analyst, kind of submit their stuff. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's great. It just means that that's an opinion. This is just another opinion from another source that, you can kind of look at, and hopefully this helps you kind of, think through what is really important to us and what are some of the drivers for some of these platforms that, we can see. And maybe there's, we wanted to see 2 of these top 5, but this UJet and this Sharpen, they're really strong in some of the verticals that we're looking at that are important to us. Let's bring them into our process. And if this opens the eyes to a couple different platforms, or if this says, wow, this really means I need to go enterprise because all of this stuff is so important, and these are the only 3 that are really doing it at this level, hopefully I can save you some time there a little bit. Again, if you have any other questions on this, if you're looking to change your platform, any questions with that, I'd love to help you kind of navigate all of this, as well as, again, I've demoed this stuff. I've seen it. We're using a lot of it, especially in our BPO with different customers that are using different CCaaS. So again, let me know if there's any questions on this stuff. I posted this on LinkedIn, the full report, but if you don't see it on LinkedIn, just DM me, and I'm more than happy to send you the full report. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Talk to everybody next week.